Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We bring about conversations of a psychological mental health coaching related paradigm. We do that as often as we can, usually several times per week. Make that happen for your listening pleasure, and we try to do that so that you can get something good out of what's there. This is our social anxiety series, and social anxiety or social awkwardness can be extremely detrimental to the development of meaningful relationships for a variety of reasons. What are some signs that you may be dealing with that? It's kind of a two-part series. But if you are dealing with social awkwardness and or trying to get more out of social relationships, both platonic and romantic, coaching can be super helpful in that way. What are some signs you may be dealing with something that's not going in a good way with that? The first is the tendency to pause in conversations. So, a person who is constantly having to think not only about what they're going to say, but how other people might interpret what they're saying, can often struggle for a good bit of time in a manner that isn't always beneficial, healthy, or pleasant. With the fear of what's going to come next and how we can be balanced in the way that we make things happen in a better way for ourselves. And so that becomes problematic for a number of reasons. The next thing to look at there is kind of the nature of me grabbing my phone, apparently. We'll be right back in two shakes of a lamb's tail. And again, in any event, what we really have is kind of a, just it's an invitation to kind of make things a little easier. The next is when you don't have words, when you don't know exactly what you're trying to say, that could be a sign of social awkwardness because you're thinking of the speed you speak, you're thinking of your word choices, you're thinking of um, are you being understood, are you being judged for the way you say things, are you adding enough to the conversation that it's worthwhile for the other person, and you're almost so in your head you're not enjoying the conversation, which means you may miss questions or nuance that you would normally catch if you were more comfortable. So social awkwardness makes you kind of doubt your own emotional and social equilibrium. Oftentimes you feel as though you're better off alone or you're more comfortable when you're by yourself. It's not necessarily that you don't like dealing with people, but it's like you don't like dealing with the unknown, for lack of a better term, of the types of people that you're dealing with, and that becomes problematic from a whole another perspective in a good way. And so ultimately that's interesting in and of itself to be able to know exactly how to navigate that. When you're dealing with wanting to be alone, it isn't social isolation that you're looking for, it's the calming down of the emotions related to the social interactive process that kind of stress you out. So the anticipation of having to be social can be stressful for a person with social awkwardness, and that ultimately gets to be overwhelming as well. So you may feel a level of stress an hour before, 2 hours before, 3 hours before a social function, and it's not necessarily that you don't enjoy the people, it's that you don't enjoy all the things that could go wrong through the interactive process, which ultimately then leads to a level of stress that isn't pleasant or proactive for the average individual, and so that becomes problematic in and of itself as well. The next thing that someone may look at is a certain level of repeating the same information, or you're saying the same thing multiple different ways. It's because you want to feel like you have something to say, but you really don't have as much content in terms of adding to the conversation as you want. So you'll spin the same words or the same topics or the same ideas in multiple ways to try to feel like you fit in with the conversation. The forced fit then leads you to not be as confident in your tone of voice, in your speed of speaking, in your way of speaking or manner of speaking, which then leads to struggles as it relates to kind of going forward in that manner as well. And so beginning to know what it is that you ultimately need to do, want to do, and the manners in which you're moving forward can be ultimately kind of somewhat problematic, at least just in the sense of feeling that level of overwhelm and knowing where it is and when it is and how it is that you ultimately want things to go forward in a positive progressive and stronger way. And so hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you to keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.